are now tuned in to the Lineman Lounge, the world's thickest sports podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Evo.
Almost on, bitches. This is the Lineman Lounge. I'm Mike. The man to my right is Evo. We are back on a beautiful Sunday, like we always are. I have loved the Sunday show. Since we've made the transition to the Sunday show, I've really enjoyed it. It gives us plenty of time to make sure that we're prepped, ready for shows. I like doing the pre-game kickoff show. That was always a lot of fun. And that is going to be coming up here pretty soon. Football season is upon us, brother. We are in the preseason. Games are going on. We have one game going on right fucking now, but I'm pumped. Preseason's back. We're here. We get to fucking talk bullshit about sports. And I'm even having an alcoholic beverage today.
Oh my God.
I know, it's crazy. So I had one last night. Stomach was a little upset and I had to pee a lot, but was not super detrimental, and it tastes delicious because it's a lemonade. So I figured I'd have one more today, see how it goes. But also, I'm really enjoying not drinking as well. I've trimmed down. I am down to like 235 right now. It's a little bit of a loss of muscle, and also, just not drinking. It's been very, very helpful. But dude, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. How's your weekend going? Are we ready to talk some fucking sports?
Yeah, man, I'm ready for some sports talk and some fun with you and all the viewers as usual. It's been a good weekend so far. It is still Sunday for me here, but it's kind of like a super long weekend because I'm about to be traveling starting tomorrow. Yesterday, though, got some golf in with the boys, old Bobby Gobbles and Dackery Robertson, who's in town. Yeah, doing a little warrant officer training. And then Mike Aaron's only wanted to play with us for half the time because I think it's because he had to ride in the cart with Dak and he's racist. So Mike decided to leave and do something else instead. But it's been a good weekend so far. Enjoying having a lot of football on because the games for the actual first official week of preseason started Thursday. My Vikings played on Thursday, and then we had games Friday, and then we had games yesterday, and now we have games going on right now as we speak. So it's pretty awesome. We have football all over the fucking place. And yes, it is just preseason football. And I'll say this. People like to get too hype over preseason football, and some people don't give a fuck about preseason football. And we need to operate somewhere a little bit more in the gray with this, because
somewhere in the middle.
Because if you're going out and you're being like, hey, my Texans beat up on the Patriots 20-9, Super Bowl, you need to pump the brakes, okay?
Preseason paper champs, baby.
But if you want to say, that game that meant absolutely nothing, that's not true either, because you can pull out little bits and pieces like we're going to do today and go over like, hey, Tank Dell, he had one spectacular catch, but if you even throw that one out, he had himself a really solid day. You can also go on the other side of the field and be like, McGuire for the Patriots looks fantastic on defense. Like he's going to look like a steal right now. And Tyquan Thornton looked like a pretty damn good receiver for him. So, or is it Keon White, not McGuire, Keon White for the Patriots did really well this weekend. Sorry. There's a lot of names to keep track of, but either way,
a lot of stuff.
The point still stands. You're able to, this whole purpose of preseason is not to evaluate the team. It's not to evaluate even the scheme, because you're really not going to be seeing a real scheme from these teams right now. It's to evaluate these mid to lower end roster players and the rookies, and to see who's going to be able to perform and make this team and try to make your team better, because the best teams in the NFL from top to bottom have guys that can come in as replacements and play really well. So having football on for me as a football diehard, I love getting to see this shit, especially when we just got done with this draft season and we talked about so many of these names. I mean, we were going through guys that were 7th round picks and stuff like that. And now I'm able to go and actually watch them perform on the football field and see if what we were saying was true or false. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah, man. And there have been some names that have popped big time so far in this preseason that we weren't sure. We had some high hopes. So I mean, I'm not smoking. I prefer mine to be eaten in the form of vitamins. But um, no, man, we have talked about some of these guys. Like we were kind of high on Tank Dell. We're like, man, I think that this guy could be pretty good, but is he going to be too small? He is going. He had a great fucking game. We'll talk about some of these names as we get in and get going through the show. But there have been some dudes that have popped, and there's also been a couple guys that things that we maybe saw when we were scouting that reared their ugly head during the game. So we'll get into all of that. But before we do, we start off the show every week with some youth sports. So we are going to dive into that. So youth sports football going on right now. I know that the guys out there in Arizona, everybody I used to coach with, Coach Q, Thomas, Angel, all those guys, love you boys. They just had their scrimmages this last week. So they're getting ready to kick off. I hope those guys do great. Rooting for all those kids as well. Was a coach of them for a very, very long time. So I still have some of those guys near and dear to my heart out here in Ohio. We were supposed to have scrimmages yesterday. Rain and lightning put a damper on that. So scrimmages did not happen. So we'll see what happens. Some of the teams got scrimmages. Some of them didn't. Graydon's team did not get one. We'll see how that affects them going into this first week because I don't know if a scrimmage is going to be rescheduled. But Graydon is slotted right now. He's going to be starting left tackle. He has been kind of slid off of that center position that he's been used to playing. But he is now easily one of the largest kids on the team. And he's looked decent from the things that I've seen at left tackle. But it's going to take him a little time getting used to that. And he also won himself a competition the other day at practice. He is also now the starting punter. So he is the starting left tackle.
Starting punter.
And the starting punter.
All right.
Leg.
Now, we had a question here. Maui burned down and Norwood's eating Maui barbecue chips. Is that too soon? I know that this isn't necessarily.
I mean, the joke might be a little too soon.
This is almost content for another show that we're going to be doing sometime here in the very near future.
Yes. So we actually, we have not put out any social or any of that stuff for the new show that is coming. There is a new show coming from your boys here at the Lineman Lounge. There will also be some additional news that follows with that show. Big news. A lot of things on the horizon for us. And some additional voices that you are going to start to hear on this channel and some other channels. So be on the lookout for that, guys. Social media push is probably going to start coming this week. So just stay tuned. But yeah, so the joke is probably a little too soon. I feel bad for the people out there in Hawaii. Like they lost fucking everything. It was
Lahaina really that got it, right?
I think it was Maui.
Lahaina. I don't know. I keep on seeing stuff. Pray for Lahaina.
Well, either way, I mean, thoughts and prayers to all the people that are in Hawaii. I actually have a friend who is stationed out
Maui
there.
fire, Hawaii's Lahaina blaze is deadliest in modern U.S. something.
Yeah,
well, I mean, it is on Maui.
Yeah, the fires are terrible. Hopefully, they find everybody, and that can work itself out. Obviously, there are a lot of people that have lost their lives during this thing with Maui. The joke, I don't think it's in bad taste. It's just for some people, it's gonna be a little bit soon. But
we're veterans. We have dark humor.
Us. We have very, very dark humor. That is what veterans are like. Some people are not gonna like that, and if you don't. Fuck them.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's okay to not like it. Yeah, it's okay to not like it.
Okay to be offended. Being offended is a normal part of life. You don't have to like everything.
But we also don't have to necessarily take it back.
Yeah, I won't.
But anyways, let's get back to what we were talking about. G starting at left tackle and at punter. He's going to play a little bit on defense, but he is not slotted as a starter there now. He's just got to get faster off the ball. His get off is not great when he doesn't know the snap count. When he knows the snap count, he's just fine. When he doesn't know the snap count, he's a little slow off the ball, which I think is probably hampering him from starting on defense as well. But That's all I got youth sports wise. I know there is youth sports going on out there. Are you tracking anything specifically going on out there other than scrimmages for the Sierra Vista Youth League that just went off?
No, I'm not tracking anything in particular. Like I said, I know that we do have sports going on here. I'm actually getting the memories popping up on my Facebook of a couple years back when I was coaching some of those little flag teams. So I know that they're right now getting into the thick of it and hopefully having those kids out there having some fun.
Yep. All right, brother.
Well, it has actually been cooler here, which is nice.
Congratulations. I'm very happy for you.
It's been cooler because we've actually had the monsoons realistically start. We're getting some good rain here finally in this monsoon season. Like right now, I think it's maybe 80 degrees. So the rain is really tamping down that heat. So yesterday it got a little bit hot because I went out there and played a little bit of that golf, but it cooled down quite a bit when the storm started pushing in, got that nice cool breeze and blocking the sun out a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of a reprieve right now. It's nice.
Yeah, the humidity can go fuck itself. It's like almost 80 degrees here, and I believe it's like 80% humidity as well. Because it has rained like a motherfucker over the last week. So that could go away anytime now. But other than that, man, I got nothing else. Youth sports wise, we're ready to start diving into some of the topics that we had on today's show.
Yeah, for sure, buddy.
All right, man. So we're going to start with football. We're going to start in a different realm of football. We're not talking about NFL. We're going to talk about college. So we talked about it a little bit last week. We prefaced that Pac-12 is basically gone. It is defunct. There is now the Pac-4. There's only fucking 4 teams left in there. And 2 of those teams are actively trying to leave the Pac-12. That would be Cal and Stanford. However, Cal and Stanford are not looking like they're making it into the ACC. 4 teams from the ACC have rejected the request for Cal and Stanford to be added to their conference. So are these guys going to be left being bag holders? Are we going to see these last 4 teams not be able to make it into a conference? Are they going to have to go to a lower conference, or are they going to go the route of the Notre Dames and go independent until they can find a landing spot? Because the Pac-12, I don't know how it could even feasibly operate under its current parameters.
Yeah, it's going to be... This problem will get worked out. I mean, yes, the ACC not accepting certain teams and stuff like that, it's going to happen because no one wants the cast-offs right now. They just wanted the teams that wanted, like the teams that did jump ship and are jumping ship, those are the teams that people wanted. Like, not to downplay like Stanford or anything like that, because, you know, yes, the college named itself after me, which is great, but to have the type of record and program that it just hasn't really been competitive since Andrew Luck, maybe. Like, they've had decent teams and stuff like that, but nothing that's really pressing.
The McCaffrey years, the Christian McCaffrey years were decent years, but they still never really got to that high level.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like Stanford's not going to find their way into another division or whatever, but or another conference, I should say. It's just, they're not going to get into the ones that they want to, probably. It'll all get worked out here in the next year.
What's crazy is that the fact that these are massive schools, and these are still big markets. Stanford and Cal are not in small locations, and they're being rejected. So I'll be very interested to find out, you know, kind of how this is going to work out. These teams got to end up somewhere, because the Pac-4 or the Pac-12 or whatever the Pac fucking whatever they're going to call it, I don't know how they can even operate. Like, it seems like an independent conference because there's only 4 teams there. What are they going to do? Now, granted, I don't believe any of the changes and shifting in college football happens this year, because week 0 kicks off in about, a week? I want to say the 21st or the 20th, I think, is the start of college football season. So we're right there. So there's still going to be a Pac-12 for this year. But after that, what is going to happen with these teams? I think that's up in the air. Nobody's really going to fucking know.
Looks like August 26th. Saturday, August 26th is the first week of college football.
So they got 2 weeks before the kickoff of college football season, before week 0 happens. So there is going to be a Pac-12 this year, but following this year, there's not going to be a Pac anything. We're going to see the rest of these teams find homes. Will they be in big conferences? Unknown. Hard to tell at this point. Hard to tell.
Yeah. Now, it's something that I actually had posted on the social medias. maybe we hadn't really completely thought about with this, because I've been trying to find the positives in these moves and everything, more competitive football conferences and things like that in college football, which sounds great. But there's also the concern of, and rightful concern of some of these other coaches. And is this really good for those schools in general? I mean, some of the players, especially
No.
sports other than football,
Right.
it
And I know
doesn't
exactly what you're talking about.
work too well.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out very well at all for a lot of these schools on your smaller sports, like your women's basketball, your baseballs, your Olympic sports, because they all travel commercially, and now they're going to be traveling long fucking distances.
So I was able to pull up the quote here. This quote is from the Missouri head coach from football, Eli Drinkwitz. Did we count the costs for the student athletes involved in this decision? And he's not talking about financial costs necessarily. We're talking about a football decision, but what about softball and baseball who have to travel cross country? Do we know what the number one symptom or cause of mental health is? It's a lack of sleep and rest. Traveling in those baseball, softball games, they travel commercial. They get done playing at 4. They got to go to the airport. They come back. It's 3 or 4 in the morning, and then they have to go to class. Did we think of any of them? I don't worry at all about the game. The game is going to be strong. Football is going to be fine. But did we consider the people that we are entrusted with? Did we consider the student athlete? And it's a really solid point. When we get to football, we're talking about a football league that is essentially the minors for the NFL. It is the feeder league, and it is very, very important. And it's almost like its own separate entity. And maybe that, like, NCAA football needs to be separate, maybe, because it is going to negatively impact all of the other sports and all the other student athletes at these colleges. So
I completely agree. And this is something that I've brought up before. I think anybody who's ever watched this show or listened to me speak about what happens inside the NCAA knows that I am not a fan of the NCAA. And anytime that we could break away from them, I think would be a fantastic idea. But that's for football. I think the NCAA can do some good for these Olympic type sports and your smaller type sports. Football, though, it doesn't work within the confines of what is happening. The money is just so big. It's so great. And the draw of these players who are going to continue to make money as well with NIL is so much more than what's going on everywhere else. College football has moved beyond the bounds of the NCAA. They should not have a hand in this anymore. They have got to figure out something else, a different way to govern what is happening, because we can see it with the Pac-12, which will become the Pac-4, the Big 12 that now has, I believe, 16 teams in it that at one point had 10 teams after they lost people. It doesn't work the same way that it used to work. And it's going to be very interesting to kind of figure out where all of this shit goes, because right now I don't know that there's a good answer. And the coach brings up an excellent point. What about all these other kids? Football is going to be fine. It's the most popular thing in America. The Super Bowl is the most watched thing on TV every fucking year. Football is going nowhere. But what about everybody else? It's a tough question. I don't think there's a good answer, because now we're talking about dealing with people's money.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Maybe finding a way to have it split. You have your NCAA and then your NCAA football or something. I don't know, but it is a way more of a complex and complicated issue than I'm willing to handle.
Right. So speaking of college football, wanted to take this time to tell you about a pretty exciting opportunity. If you guys are huge fans of college football, you can get in on a new type of fantasy football for college football. Now, there's 119 teams. There's just entirely too many players, too many things going on to gamble with your hard-earned money on all of these players. You can't do normal fantasy football with college guys. But what you can do is you can go check out Bandwagon Fantasy Sports, and you can start betting, doing fantasy sports on teams. You can actually pick from a pool of teams, all 110 college football teams, and you can say, these are the 8 teams that I want. I believe this team down here who's not expected to be very good. They're going to be really good this year. They're going to win 8 games. They're going to score me a ton of points. So at Bandwagon Fantasy Sports, they have changed the way that fantasy sports are done. You don't bet on players, you bet on a team. You can take a team for an entire season, or you have the ability to swap out those teams. If that team, that underdog that you were picking, if you're going to hop off their bandwagon, you can switch them out and add somebody else. So if you're on iOS, so an iPhone, you can go check out Bandwagon Fantasy Sports. Learn a new type of way to play fantasy sports and get in on the college football action. Boom.
Nice. It sounds like that cat in the background needs some dick.
Yeah. So he has a dick. I don't think he needs any dick.
Maybe. Hey, we don't know his preferences.
That's true. That's very, very true. And I don't want to assume. But yeah, he's fucking annoying, but he's also kind of a cool cat.
No, I love my cat, buddy. It's all good.
Yeah. So yeah, Bandwagon Fantasy Sports, friend of mine. I'm helping him out. He's helping us out. So I've actually taken a look at it. I tried to do a little bit on the Women's World Cup. It did not go well because I, for some reason, stuck with Team USA to be very good. So I had my 6 teams. Team USA is out early, so I did not perform well. But I'm pumped for this upcoming fantasy football season because we just got notification our league has been re-upped. I'm going to be in bandwagon fantasy, getting my toes wet, dipping into the college pool, figuring all that out. So yeah, there's a lot of fantasy stuff. And if you guys do love college football and fantasy football, Bandwagon is a great place to kind of see what they're up to and get a little mix there. I also maybe am paid to do their social media work. So,
hey, it's all good, brother. All righty. So, done with the college sports?
I got nothing else on college football. You got anything?
No, sir.
All right.
Other than there's news that Jim Harbaugh probably isn't going to be suspended this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody kind of saw that coming. Now, how long will he be suspended for is the question.
Yeah, what was it? The I don't remember what the committee's called, the disciplinary committee or whatever, basically said that the NCAA committee on infractions rejected the suspension for him. So he's not going to be suspended this year, and it'll go to the committee on infractions in 2024.
So
I don't know.
Sounds like they tried to self-impose a suspension. They said not fucking good enough. So Michigan's like, well, we're not fucking suspending him then. We'll deal with this next year, which means there's a very real possibility that if Harbaugh does not go out and they don't win a national title, he might not be going back to Michigan now. That's a very real possibility.
There's your NFL jump.
Yeah.
That'll be when Harbaugh jumps back over to NFL. Be like, yeah, you don't want to let me coach in college football? Well, I know some people that want me.
I'm out. Yep.
Yeah, well, what do you think about now that I think about this? If next year he might not be the coach, and based on what we assume is going to happen down in Arizona, you think that makes any sense? Him going down to Arizona, getting himself a new quarterback and Caleb Williams?
I mean, it could be a fit. I think it could really, really be a fit. If he knows that there's a suspension coming, like if they reject the self-imposed suspension, you got to think something worse is coming on the other end. So, I mean, I think our Cardinals fans excited about that opportunity if that comes up. I assume you'd rather have Harbaugh over Gannon.
I think they're going to take anything over this year, what they're going to see this year, because it's been bad for the past couple of years. It's going to be real bad this year. Real fucking bad. So
yeah, we thought Hackett was a train wreck. I think this could be worse than Hackett's attempt last year.
Yep. We've said, at least I know I've said, I think that Gannon's a one-year coach, that they're going to go draft Caleb Williams, that they're going to bring in an offensive-minded head coach, someone with a little bit more acumen, and go after, Caleb Williams as a first-round pick and trade Kyler to someone. And I've already said I think they're going to trade him to Denver, though I think I'm opening up to some other teams. We've got your Buccaneers and things like that might be looking for a quarterback next year. But still, Harbaugh being that coach down there, offensive minded, it makes a little bit of sense to me. We're going to put a pin in that. We're going to put a pin in that as as a possible prediction here on the 13th of August.
All right. It becomes a very real possibility. But all right, man, I got nothing else college football wise. Let's transition over. We're going to talk about the NBA real quick. And I mean, so for me, the Hall of Fame is different depending on what sport you're talking about. I believe the NFL Hall of Fame is probably the greatest Hall of Fame, just because it is an exclusive club, but it's not so exclusive that you're like, I don't understand why some of these guys are not in. Like, that's how I feel about baseball. Baseball, we still have a ton of gatekeepers that are like, no, this guy can't get in because he said fuck instead of a 6-year-old when he was in his rookie year. Like, they're so strict about the way they do things in baseball that it makes it not fun. And the NFL is kind of more in the middle where they're like, okay, some of these guys really don't deserve it, but like everybody who's really, really good almost for them like gets in, right? And then you get to the Basketball Hall of Fame, and I feel like a lot of motherfuckers get into the Basketball Hall of Fame. People that I wouldn't even consider to necessarily be Hall of Famers make it into the Basketball Hall of Fame. But this year's class has some fucking dudes in this NBA Hall of Fame or the Basketball Hall of Fame. You got Dirk Nowitzki going in, Tony Parker, Pau Gasol, Dwayne Wade. Like, those are dudes that absolutely deserve to be there. Anybody from that list, like, who's like, oh my God, no doubt this guy was going in. I was a little surprised that Tony Parker made it, but when you think about how many championships he won and helped lead with Greg Popovich, I mean, it kind of makes sense why he gets in, right? Part of what, 3-4 titles.
Yeah, I think Tony Parker's kind of not, I don't want to say the odd man out, but he's the lowest of those players as far as deservedness to be there. He's still Tony Parker, excellent player, excellent career. That's not to say that, he wasn't a great player, but, he was one of those role players on a team with some other really great guys. So, I get it. But if there was one that I was going to kind of point my finger at and be like, maybe you don't belong here, it might be Tony Parker.
Yeah. So
if it's one of those like start bench cut type situations, like which one of these guys you got to get rid of? Yeah, that's
Tony Parker's got to go.
See you later, alligator.
Yeah, because Dirk's not going anywhere. Dirk revolutionized the game for like a stretch 4. Stretch 4s were not nearly as common, and then Dirk basically made it a spot that teams covet now. Dwayne Wade is Dwayne Wade. I mean, third best shooting guard, maybe third best shooting guard of all time behind Michael Jordan and Kobe. And then Pau Gasol was another animal. Didn't have the range that Dirk had, but was able to step away. Very good. So congratulations to everybody in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. I think everybody there deserves to make it. Tony Parker's the only one that's kind of close, but I'm glad it's not like baseball's Hall of Fame where just people for vindictive reasons will hold people out of the Hall of Fame, whether they deserve to be in or not. And there's things about baseball that kind of piss you off. Like the guy who has the record for the most home runs of all time or the most hits of all time. Somehow those guys are not in their Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Well, it seems weird.
A little bit.
Seems a little weird to me. Yeah, I mean, there's reasons. I think they're dumb reasons, but
reasons that made the sport pretty fun.
Yeah. It made the sport watchable again, saved it in the 90s.
Yep.
But,
Either way.
Either way. I got nothing else on basketball, though. So you ready to talk about some baseball?
Absolutely. Let's jump over to that.
All right, man. So baseball, obviously things are still not great in the Central Division. You guys are.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Up a cushion. You guys are starting to open up a cushion, though. You're 3 games over 500. We are 6 games under. We are 4.5 games back. This is your guys' race. If for some reason you don't win this division, everybody in your front office, the coach, the GM, everybody is fucking fired because we have been so bad. The only positive thing that has happened to the Guardians organization since the trade deadline and the All-Star break is Jose Ramirez knocking out Tim Anderson and then getting his suspension reduced from 3 games to 2. That is the only fucking good thing that has happened for the Guardians.
Yeah, look, I kind of feel the same way. It's just my Twins, they are just a commanding 4.5 game lead. You know, with a 61-58 record, we easily could be tied for 4th in the AL East. So we're really cooking right now. And it's something very positive to feel if you're a Minnesota sports fan. These Twins are the real deal. They're going to win the Central this year, and we can all feel great about that. Yeah, it is tough as usual. You hear this every week. AL Central is a tough league to watch if you're part of that fan base. So, but in other awesome news, we had the Braves last night put on a little bit of a show versus the Mets, who are also in tank.
Just
Central.
Down bad, dude. They are down. The Mets are down and bad. They have dumped everybody that they could before the trade deadline hit. And I would be willing to bet there's going to be more trades and salary dumps in the offseason. And the Braves are really fucking good. They now have the leader in home runs with Matt Olson, hit his 42nd last night. He has more home runs than they have losses.
Hit 2.
Yeah, he had 2 last night. They got up to 42. Yeah, he was at 40, got up to 42 last night. So, yeah, now he has more home runs than that team has losses. The Mets stink. And, I mean, right now, you got to imagine that the Braves probably the favorites again to go back and win a World Series. I mean, you got the Dodgers who are always kind of there, going to be a problem. The Rangers who have come on very strong, and then Orioles and the Rays. But teams don't look like the Braves look like. They have talent at every single position. And all that talent is wrapped up for a really long time on good fucking contracts. The Braves front office has done a spectacular job of getting these guys signed to reasonable deals. And I think that there's a very good chance. I don't know if the world will end, but I think there's a chance that they fucking repeat, though. They're so goddamn good, man. They are so good. They're fun to watch. I was really pumped that the Guardians took a couple games from them when they did have a series, because I thought we were getting swept, and I thought every game was going to look like last night's game, 21-3. Because
21-3, and those 21 runs were scored on 22 hits. It was fucking kind of wild.
Yeah, when you were swinging the bat that good, you don't stop. You just keep fucking swinging until eventually you get out. That's one great thing about baseball. It's the only game that the defense has the ball. So you gotta give the other team a chance. And sometimes they don't fucking miss. And it didn't seem like the Braves were missing last night.
All righty. Well, anything else baseball wise that you want to go before we jump over to the NFL?
Just one last thing. Because this is something big storyline that we talked about. Going into All-Star break and getting ready before the trade deadline, the Angels were right there. They were a couple games over 500. They were saying Shohei is no longer on the trade block. We are making a run. They go out, they acquire some pieces, and since that point, they have been terrible. They are 2-8 in their last 10. They are 2 games under 500, 12 and a half games out of first place in the West. Did the Angels make the right decision in keeping Shohei because they're going to retain him, or did they fuck up thinking that they could make a run this year because it doesn't look like that's going to happen, and they're going to lose Shohei and get nothing in return for it?
I'm not sure they're going to lose him yet, but I don't know. It's a contentious situation. We'll say that.
Yeah, very contentious. If I'm the Angels, I'm like shitting my pants right now. Like, oh my God, is it possible that we have just made the dumbest decision in the history of American sports and not getting anything for the guy who's going to cost more money than any other, I guess, North American sports contract? Because I'm not sure how much Messi got. I know it's a lot, and I see the comments about Messi and all the things that's going on with Messi. But But Shohei is going to, I would imagine, eclipse any contract that's ever been seen in North American sports. I really hope. I hope for their fans' sake they didn't fuck this up, but it's starting to look like they may have.
And the Messi contract, he's going to pay him somewhere between 50 and 60 mil a year for a 2.5 seasons. So estimated value around 125 to 150 million for just basically 2 years.
So I guess his APV is not even as high as I thought it was.
Yeah.
So, but hey, listen, Messi's down in Miami scoring fuckloads of goals because this is the United States and we stink at soccer.
And with this deal, though, he will have 1.6 billion in earnings after this deal. So he's done pretty well for himself.
Yeah, 1.6 billion is a pretty good life for playing fucking soccer or football, depending on where you hail from.
Well, we hail from fucking the most winningest country on the whole goddamn planet.
Correct. Also, I see comments in here as well, so I'll toss it up there. Yes, the boys over in from Wrexham. There's a new season coming out. If you don't know what happened, spoiler alerts, I'm about to tell you. They got promoted. Congratulations to the guys at Wrexham. I was tracking the story because I don't know if you watched the documentary. I fucking loved it, dude. It was so good.
I didn't see it.
I don't like soccer. I am not a soccer fan. I like watching my daughter play soccer, but watching it on a world stage, I don't care about. But one thing that I have a ton of respect for is the culture and the fandom that goes with soccer. Those people are legit. If you like, I would go to any soccer match. I would probably have a great time if it's in a different country. I'm not watching one in the United States because we don't give a fuck about soccer. But if you go to a Wrexham, you go to England and you go catch a match, that has got to be an absolutely electric fucking atmosphere. And I have the utmost respect for what those people put themselves through on a week-to-week basis. We live and die on Sundays in America with the NFL, and these people have very similar thing on whatever fucking day of the week they play in whatever country they're in, because people are crazy about their soccer over there. It's probably a great time going to a match.
So what got me into it and made me a bit of a Liverpool fan was that I had an English buddy who, dual citizenship, had come over here to the U.S. and was a big Liverpool fan. And so I was like, whatever, I'll get into this. And his whole family in the living room watching this game, this match, if you will, just going nuts and doing the chants with the crowd and everything. And I was really getting into it. I was like, this is awesome. So it was fun. Like, I tried watching them on my own. I was like, it just ain't the same. Right. But when watching it with him, fantastic. And I will say this. I did go to one MLS game when I was back in Minnesota for a bachelor party. We stopped and saw the Minnesota Loons play. It was a good time. It was a good time because they bring a lot of that soccer culture. Like, we are imitating it over here, but the chants and things like that happen during they
happen spontaneously, and everybody picks it up so fucking fast. These chants. It's so impressive. That's one thing that I loved about watching Welcome to Wrexham. There's a reason that I love Ted Lasso so much. Like, you can see all the Ted Lasso shit behind me. Like, that culture, that level of fandom is something that I support 100%, even if I don't necessarily enjoy the sport. If you can get me that kind of hype, I don't give a fuck what we're watching. We could be watching underwater basket weaving. If the crowds at underwater basket weaving are like the crowds at those fucking soccer matches, I'm down to go watch. That atmosphere is lit as fuck.
It's one of the big reasons why the NFL putting games in Europe is a lot of fun too, because those fans don't get to see professional American football very often, but they bring that same sort of energy when they go to those games. They're doing the chants and stuff like that on the sidelines for the NFL games. So it's pretty cool to see that.
So we got some comments come in here. So we got Norwood. I do not like soccer outside of Ted Lasso or Wrexham. So I feel you there. I understand that. Feel very much the same. So we were talking about baseball, and if you guys did not see it, I've been pumping out the information about this bet for weeks. Stephen Kwan in the leadoff spot, pays again. I'm very glad that I bet as much as I did. I put like $150 onto the bet today. So yeah, Stephen Kwan, if you are not sure what I'm talking about, there's a clip on YouTube, not on YouTube. I believe the clip is on the Facebook page, and I know it's on the Twitter. Exactly how to let Stephen Kwan keep making you shitloads of money for the Guardians. I have hit that bet 6 times in the last week out of 7 days. There was only one day that I bet it and I did not hit it, but that's because I did not realize that Stephen Kwan had a day off, and he was not hitting, and he was not in the leadoff spot, so that bet did not hit. Every other time, though, I have hit that bet. I've even hit it mid-game. So go check it out, the Twitter, and if it's not on there, if it's not on Facebook, I'll try to get it posted there as well to make sure everybody knows how to make money off of this. We also had some other stuff. Yes, that is a Ted Lasso Believe sign. I'm a big believer in Believe. So yeah, but I got nothing else on soccer other than the fact that I respect the fandom. And I got nothing else on baseball. How about you, brother?
No, I'm good to go.
All right. So let's pop over to the world of the NFL. Our bread and butter. Let's start talking some fucking football because there's a lot of games. Everybody has played with the exception of the 2 teams that are happening
the
tonight.
49ers and the Raiders are playing at 1 p.m. my time here. Currently, the Saints are absolutely obliterating the Chiefs. And you heard it here first, folks. This is basically your Super Bowl matchup, Saints and Chiefs. And the Chiefs are going to lose terribly, I guess. Mahomes did play today, which was surprising to me.
But, some of the people have been playing. We had Deshaun Watson come out and play during the Browns game. I got to watch a little bit of that. We'll talk about that game here in a little bit, but everybody's getting some work in, and you were just super right into Super Bowl prediction of Saints. Bold on the Saints. Going hard on the Saints.
Obviously, that's what's going to happen. I mean, they got jacked Derek Carr there now, who was 6 for 8 today, 70 yards and a touchdown. You also had Jameis Winston go out, who was 3 for 3, 53 yards and a touchdown. So they're just chocked full of A tier, maybe even S tier quarterbacks there in New Orleans. You also have Alvin Kamara, who's going to be suspended for a little bit, which is lucky for the rest of the league because he's just going to go off on a tear. He had 3 carries for 14 yards today and 2 receptions for 21 yards. So, Alvin Kamara is going to really be beating up the opposition.
Yeah. Alvin Kamara, first round in your fantasy draft, for sure. That's where he should be. This
is really, we did have some questions, I believe, over the past week of, where can we get some fantasy football in these? Well, you're getting it right now. Bye. Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, first rounders.
Absolutely. Oh, Joe Mixon also with the new contract. He's going to be motivated. Joe Mixon goes in the first round, especially if you play in our league. Make sure you draft Joe Mixon in the first round.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we've had all of these games going on except for, obviously currently Saints and Chiefs are going on right now, but we have the 49ers and Raiders here in just a little bit. Later this afternoon. But we've had games, like I said, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and now Sunday. So a lot of football to go over. We're not going to hit up like every single bit of every one of these games, but and I was telling Mike before the show, I do have the YouTube Sunday ticket thing. So I've actually been able to kind of watch these and replay the games in order to watch little bits and pieces of the highlights and kind of evaluate some of these players. So I haven't seen all the games yet, but I've seen a decent amount. So do you want to start going over some of these games, starting with Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely, man. Which one do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so our first one, Texans and Patriots. We already kind of went over this a little bit. Texans won 20-9, but the scores here really don't matter. If you're paying attention to preseason scores, you're fucked up. That's kind of the joke we were making there about the 17-0 lead that the Saints have on the Chiefs right now.
No, that's very clearly what will happen during the regular season because Pat Mahomes is obviously not as good as Derek Carr.
Mm-hmm. He's got that quarterback's Netflix doc hangover, which is going to be the new Madden curse.
That's right. That's the new Madden curse, baby.
But we had the Texans roll out their top draft pick CJ Stroud. How do you think that he looked out there? With that interception.
So one of the things that I remember talking about when we were kind of breaking down all these quarterbacks is CJ has a lot of talent, a lot of physical talent, smart, but a lot of times CJ holds on to the ball too long, right? That's exactly what happened on that pick. I mean, it happened on a couple of other plays as well in that game. When you go back and you check out the highlights, CJ is just holding the ball too long. The game is faster. He's going to have to process it a little quicker. He still has the arm talent. He still has all the physical traits that you want, but the game is quick. He's going to have to speed up his process. He's got to be quicker because he's right now, everything's a little slow, a little late. And that's what happened because he had that receiver wide open. If he throws it as he's getting to the top of his break, that is a 18-yard gain on a fucking comeback out route. Like, no problem. He just holds it for one step too long, lets the safety jump down and break on it. And in the NFL, that's a pick every fucking time.
Yeah.
Other than that, other than him being just a little slow to process, looks okay. I mean, he just needs more time.
Yeah, I don't know that we can garner a whole lot based on his performance. It'll be interesting to see him next week and the week after if they continue to play him in these preseason games, how he progresses, because that's usually the biggest thing for rookie quarterbacks is getting through the speed of the game, because it is at a different speed. It's much faster. Getting the playbook down and decision-making time processing. So it's tough to say. I think that sometimes it's a good omen. We'll see this from higher picks that like one of their first throws will be an interception in the preseason, and usually they'll start to figure it out by the regular season. I would still give this guy a year. I'm not expecting him to blow the barn doors off and become the next greatest thing this season. But there's nothing necessarily good or bad that I would garner from his performance so far. But what I will say is that I did like, again, what I saw out of that Patriots defensive lineman, the rookie. I can't remember his name again. And Tank Dell. Tank Dell is going to be an interesting one. He's going to be a little bit more gadgety. I'm not sure where he's going to fall in the depth chart right now, because the Texans do have some guys like John Mechie, who's coming back from having cancer and whatnot, who are going to be interesting to see out there. They also have Robert Woods, Nico Collins. So I'm assuming Tank Dell is going to be that third or fourth receiver, but they're going to be able to rotate those guys through a lot.
Yeah, and I think Tank is probably going to operate primarily out of the slot.
Yeah.
I mean, so you can see that he has the ability to work outside. I believe that pass where he was bobbling it around, he was working on the outside there. I think that it would be better for him to work a little farther inside, just so he has the room to create separation without having to get off the jam. I think that would probably be better for him. But, I mean, he looks like he can play the part. He is going to be a little bit of a gadgety guy, but those guys can hang around for a long fucking time and be very productive.
Yeah. Now, it is interesting. But last year, we saw the Texans continue to be one of the shittier teams in the NFL record-wise. But we talked about them having their Alamo. Like, they were hanging it in and duking it out with some really good teams later on in the season. They almost beat the Chiefs later on in the season last year. This team is a lot better than I think that people are going to be giving them credit for, just because they are the Texans. But I'm going to run down through their projected starting roster right now. Okay, so CJ Stroud at quarterback. You have a solid backup in Davis Mills. Davis Mills obviously is not a starter in this league. We've seen that for the past couple of years. But can he start and play games and get stuff for you? Absolutely. That long neck can see over all these offensive linemen. So he's got some benefits there. At running back, you got Damian Pierce, who really busted onto the scene last year and showed that he was a very competent starting running back. But you've also got Devin Singletary as the primary backup now. So another guy that has had a decent run here in the NFL. Wide receivers, we already talked about Nico Collins, Robert Woods, Tank Dell, John Mechie. You should be able to get some decent receiving options out of that. But in addition, Oh, you also have Noah Brown and Xavier Hutchinson. Xavier Hutchinson, the Iowa State rookie, who I really like this year, is a bigger body guy. But you have Dalton Schultz, who was brought in this year, and we know that he's a solid, competent receiving tight end. The offensive line is actually looking quite a bit better. Now, they do have some young guys here with potential, but we don't know if they're going to reach that potential. They have Laramie Tunsil still. They've just re-signed Titus Howard at right tackle. So they've got decent bookend tackles. Of course, Titus Howard, a little bit hurt and banged up right now. But then on the interior, you've got Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, and Shaq Mason, left guard, center, right guard, respectively. So these are higher draft picks and stuff like that, guys who have some potential. So they're actually going to be putting together a somewhat decent offensive line. And that offense all of a sudden looks at least average, if not above average in some spots. On defense, we're really going to be looking forward to seeing what their new head coach can do here, because he's definitely a guru out there with the 49ers.
Yeah, that's
Anderson.
That's where I'm excited to see how much this team has really improved, because they had some juice last year on offense. Now, Davis Mills is just a steady workman type guy. He's a backup. He's a career backup. So you're not going to get the explosive plays, but they were able to stay in games for the most part. If this defense can really take a step forward, this could be close to a 500 team, I think, this year.
Yeah.
If they can take a step forward.
Like the defensive line, I'm pretty happy with that they got going. So Will Anderson, Malik Collins, Sheldon Rankins, and then Jonathan Greener and Jerry Hughes and Chase Winovich are going to kind of be rotating at that other defensive end spot. Linebackers, you've got guys who are definitely veterans. We'll see how much tread they have left on the tires, but they have been solid contributors in the league. In Denzel Perryman, Christian Kirksey, they brought in Henny Tuotuo, however the fuck you say his name, as a rookie who had some decent run already in the preseason. And then at cornerbacks, you got Derek Stingley Jr., who still, he's not Sauce Gardner, but given another year, expected to be pretty solid. Jimmy Ward, Jalen Petrie as your safeties, and Des King, Steven Nelson as the opposite cornerback. So you're working with a decent cornerback group, a decent linebacker group, and a defensive line that shows a decent amount of promise. So,
right.
Again, there's a lot of potential on this Texans team. We're just telling you now, don't sleep on them. I definitely think that they could get close to that 500 mark. I'm putting them more towards 7 wins, but that is an awesome season for a Texans team that has been much maligned. And there's a lot of reason. If you are one of those true NFL fans, one of those true Texans fans who has stuck with your team through nothing but bad times, whether it's Deshaun Watson or everything in between, you've got some reason to be looking forward to what this Texans team can become.
This team is not going to be world beaters right away. They will surprise some teams. But I think there's a very real possibility they could be right around 500 if things fall into place. Stroud is going to have to take his lumps. He's going to have to show that he's capable. But I think that he is. I think that there are going to be games where he looks fucking terrible. And there are going to be games where he looks really good. That is the growing pains that goes with being a high first round pick quarterback, especially if you start game one of your rookie year. You're going to go through bumps and bruises. You're going to be fucked up. Peyton Manning holds the record for the most interceptions in a rookie season at 27 or some crazy shit. It's a super high number. And he turned out being fantastic. The team has to have faith, and they got to see some progress. So I'm not down on them. I'm not high on them by any means, but they got some pieces that I think they could be a thorn in a couple of team sides.
Mm-hmm. Moving on to the next game, though, because we did stick with that one quite a bit. We had my Vikings and Seattle play. Overall, I liked what I saw from the Vikings squad. Again, we're not going to see a whole lot of schematic stuff. The offense is going to put everything that they got out there on film.
Very
Same
vanilla.
with the defense. But I will say this. I can already see the difference in our defense going from the deep two safety Donna Shell defense that we ran last year, where it's we're just going to try to keep you on the field for a long time, but let you score as much as you want on us. and hopefully our offense can keep up with it, to a much more aggressive defense. Like, saw a decent amount of blitzing from our guys, getting a good amount of pressure. So I'm happy with that schematic change. Running back room a little bit in flux with us getting rid of Dalvin Cook. Ty Chandler was a late round pick for us last year, someone that thought had a decent amount of potential. He's showing up as a pretty good number 2 back so far in preseason. Hasn't been showing it in practice as much, and Kevin O'Connell said as much, like we need to see this in practice from him as well. But he looks really good. Going to be our probably primary backup to Alexander Madison this year, unless we sign a Kareem Hunt, who we did bring in for a visit. Dwayne McBride, 7th round pick for us, who I was really high in the draft process, looked like shit. He did not look good on kick returns or running. I think that he's probably headed to the practice squad, honestly, with how he's performed so far this preseason. I love the potential out of him, but he is being slow to pick up the playbook right now and not hitting the hole like I'm hoping for. And then a couple other things. I mean, really that night was the receiving options on both sides of the ball. Seeing both Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison out there, they both looked like what you're expecting from first round wide receivers, albeit a little bit more slight in size, but they were putting up, and you're seeing the routes and stuff that they're running. They're going to be very solid contributors. Probably, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba maybe sooner or maybe more explosive this first year just because of the situation.
JSN is going to be a problem for a lot of people.
With Addison, you have, like, I love KJ Osborne and obviously Justin Jefferson, the number 2 ranked guy in NFL's top 100, which blew me away. Justin Jefferson is going to be getting a lot of looks, and KJ Osborne is always going to be a decent threat out there, but it's not necessarily the same as having DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett out there alongside of you. So that's why I think JSN has the potential of having a lot of players or a lot of defenders on the other receivers other than him. It's going to open up a lot for him. But I really liked what I saw out of Brandon Powell for the Vikings. He's a former Rams, just like return specialist, and I think that he's going to be a return specialist for us. But he showed up really well in the game, and he's been kind of lighting up in practice. We had the recent addition of N'Keal Harry, which former Patriots.
When I saw that you guys signed him, I was like, well, my first question was why.
We've taken a lot of retreads who are former first-round guys because obviously someone saw that they had some talent somewhere and they just haven't made it happen. I mean, we did the same thing with Jalen Reagor, who, again, I kind of figured was going to be done after this preseason. He had himself a hell of a game. But N'Keal Harry, again, Patriots, and then with the Bears last year, we brought in N'Keal Harry because we've had some injuries to our lower end depth. So it was just expected to be a camp body. But he didn't look too bad out there either, honestly. So he has the potential of maybe making the 53, if not the practice squad for us, based on how he started to play. But on the other side, what I really liked was Jake Bobo. He was a guy that I said reminded me of Ben Skoranek, the Rams wide receiver. And Bobo looked pretty decent in this game as well. 3 receptions, 55 yards for Seattle. And he came in as an undrafted guy, so he could be a little bit of a steal for him. I fully expect him to make the 53. Other than that, defensively, love watching Ivan Pace play. I think the saddest part for my Vikings is last year's draft is definitely questionable at this point with some of our top picks. We had Lewis Seen, who, was our first round pick safety, broke his leg last year, and he looks like a big time boomer, but he's the type of safety that would have been good in the NFL about 10 years ago. He's just laying the lumber, but I don't know if I can trust him for much else, and I don't expect him to start this year at this point. And then also at cornerback, Andrew Booth Jr. was a 2nd round pick for us. He's just not looking good. Our 4th round pick from last year, Caleb Evans, looks better. So kind of sad there to see that. But overall, I'm happy with my Vikings performance. We have to clean up some penalties. Special teams look sloppy as hell, which that'll get fixed because it's a lot of normally the special teams is not your starters out there anyways. And so you've got the backups to the backups playing special teams right now. So you're going to have some weird stuff happen.
All right, all right. So I don't have too much to say on your guys' game. So I'm not gonna sit here and just and bullshit you. But
Alrighty. Well
apparently you
then,
seem like you were. I see the stat line. I see that Drew Lock looked like he was good, but I did not really see the game. I saw a couple of highlights here and there, so I'm not gonna break down what I saw from you guys.
yeah, and that's going to be tough too. If you just look at the box score on some of these games,
Mhm.
it's going to seem a lot different. Now, Drew Lock played, I want to say, into the fourth quarter for Seattle. That's why the only other guy out there for him, I believe, was Allers, who is an undrafted guy.
Mhm.
And Allers looked way more like Taysom Hill. He
Oh,
didn't have arm strength. The touchdown, I believe, he threw a touchdown. Let me double check here. Allers threw a touchdown, yes, and it was a like 30-yard reception. It was a blown coverage. The cornerback got turned around and then fell down. But on that play, Allers was getting tackled and just like kind of lofted it up there, and it was a basket catch, like easiest catch anyone could do it type thing. So passing wise, yeah, he was 4 for 4 for 43 yards. It looks pretty decent. All of his receptions were really short except for that one, but the guy went out there running the ball like he was Taysom Hill. So if they keep him on the squad, I think that's where he fits in, is probably a gadget type of quarterback, a wildcat type guy. Um, Drew Lock, 17 to 24, had a decent day, but again, he was playing into the fourth quarter and he was going against the backups of the backups. So
yeah, thirds
as
and
a
fourths. Yeah.
it's kind of what you're expecting from him. Same with like Nick Mullins had himself a good day, 14 to 20, 139, but to me, he looked like an average backup quarterback at best.
Yeah. So, and that's what happens a lot of times in these games is you'll see guys that, oh man, they had a really good stat line, but unless you watch, you don't really know how good they were. So it's hard for me because I did not watch that game. Now I did watch, um, that Patriots game because I wanted to see what Stroud was going to look like. I made sure that I caught some of the Jets and the fucking Panthers. I caught some of the Bills and Colts. I want to see what these young quarterbacks are all about. So I didn't watch everybody because I mean I'm not concerned. I kind of know what the Seahawks are going to roll out there, with the exception of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like but I have a pretty good feeling I know what Jackson Smith and Jigba's going to do. He's going to be pretty dynamic.
Yeah, he's going to be
Um,
solid. But so you getting into the stat line stuff, we're going to go over the Bears game, but Justin Fields looks like he had a super solid day. But
yeah,
then
but he
you
threw
go
one
back,
fucking pass.
he had in total on 3 passes, I believe, less than 10 air yards that got almost 100 yards of receptions and a couple
Right.
touchdowns. Like, it looks really good on the stat line, but when you break it down, it's more of what that Bears offense was set up to do. He's a running quarterback, and he's going to throw short dump offs and screens and stuff that the actual talent is going to go out there and produce for him. Khalil
Yeah,
Herbert had himself a day
when
on
you
like
throw the
one
ball
play.
to fucking DJ Moore at the line of scrimmage and he takes it for fucking 60 yards to the house, yeah, your stat line's going to look great. But if you look at the ball that he threw, that ball was behind him. And DJ made it happen.
Yeah.
Like, and it was a fucking screen, and that ball was behind him.
Yep.
So
And,
you don't know a lot yet right now
yeah.
if that guy's really all that good. You have to have a little bit more to it.
Absolutely. So Friday games, we had Packers and Bengals play. Didn't really see a ton from Jordan Love, because everyone's wanting to watch that out there. I mean, he was 7 or 10, 46 yards, but a pretty low average, 4.6 yards per pass. So nothing to write home about there. Anything from this game that you noticed standing out?
So I did notice that it seemed like Jordan Love had a pretty good command of the team. He got people in the right spots, but that's not what everybody's concerned with. It's, can Jordan do the things that Aaron used to do there? And what he didn't show any of that yet. But there's still a lot of time. But this is another game that I caught the beginning portions just because of who was starting. And then as soon as their starters were out, I stopped watching.
Yeah. To me, what I kind of feel what I've seen from this offense so far, and obviously, again, we're not seeing the full scheme. They're going to be going a lot more towards a more classical NFC North style offense, which is short passing game, run the ball, really keep the offense out on the field for a long time. It's death by a thousand cuts versus trying to get the big plays and stuff like that. That's kind of the feeling that I'm getting, is that they have switched up their offensive mindset from what they were doing before. So we'll see if it's successful for them. I don't think it will be, especially when you do have other teams that are running much more of a modern NFL offense, like my Vikings and like Detroit. Those guys are going to be able to put up a lot of points.
Yeah.
On that, I didn't really see a ton from the Bengals that stood out to me. I mean, they seemed like they were pretty well outmatched, but again, it's preseason. It's tough to really be able to pick and choose stuff from that. We also had the Giants and the Lions play.
This is a game again. I did not watch this game. I have not watched anything on this game yet, so I cannot give you any analysis on things that I did and did not see.
So for me, Tyrod Taylor, who's the primary backup there for the Giants, he didn't look fantastic, which I would have hoped for more at this point from him. Other than that, the receiving options, they seem like they have a lot of B at best tier, like number 2 guys, but really number 3 on most teams at receiver for the Giants, which is, what they were last year. They brought in Jalen Hyatt.
If you look at them on paper, they don't. I mean, Jalen Hyatt's supposed to be the fastest guy in the world right now.
Well, yeah, and he had a reception, but it lost 4 yards. So really not a whole lot. And we prefaced this last week. Wait and see what these guys put out on the field, because just because a guy can run fast, he could be a track sprinter for the Olympics and turn out to be kind of garbage. I think you understand a little bit how speed doesn't always translate onto the football field out there for the Cleveland Browns. So
yeah, we do.
But on the other side, Detroit, I mean, some of their backups, and this is what I'm talking about, good teams are going to have guys who are playing in preseason games that aren't starters, but they can be contributors going forward. One of the guys, Jahmyr Gibbs, higher draft pick, we're expecting him to kind of pop off and be really good for Detroit. He didn't look bad at all. I mean, 6 rushes, 19 yards, but receiving, he was out there as well with a 18-yard reception. Like, he didn't play a ton, but he actually looks the part, like he's going to be a good, at least complementary piece this year.
I don't think Jahmyr is going to be asked to be a workhorse back. There's going to be a timeshare there.
Yes. And Divino Zigbo, who got a majority of the work running the ball for him, he looked solid. 11 carries, 31 yards. Like, he's just going to be kind of that trudge type of back.
Yeah, but he's even probably their third back, because they'd signed who else did they sign this year? Dude from the Bears, right?
I believe so.
Oh gosh, I cannot remember.
Pull up the depth chart here real quick. So Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, and Craig Reynolds are right now slated to be their top 3 guys.
Yeah, so
and I don't even know if
it's going to be David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs doing the timeshare split there.
And
probably.
Craig Reynolds didn't even play in this game. Their third stringer. They had Mo Ibrahim, undrafted guy from Minnesota. They have Benny Snell, and Divino Zigbo. Those guys may or may not make the roster at all, type thing. For sure, Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be able to be there, be the starter, but he's not going to have to be the workhorse with the guys that they got.
Right.
Other than that, Jameson Williams had 2 catches for 18 yards. Again, he's going to be suspended for part of the year. Sam Laporta out there had a target, no catches at tight end, their rookie tight end. So didn't really see a whole lot from the Detroit offense, but I think that is them. They already know kind of what their offense can be. They're running the same system, so they're not going to put a lot of their cards out there for people to see as of right now. Also on Friday, we have Falcons and Dolphins playing. Kind of a dog shit game. Didn't see a whole lot. Did you see any of this game?
I did not see any of this game either. The only thing I did hear was that apparently something happened where they yanked Bijan from this game. At least that's what I heard. Seemed like he got benched almost from some of the reports.
I don't know. I didn't really see anything about that, so I don't know. It'd be tough to comment on it.
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate then.
I'll say I didn't see a whole lot from the Atlanta side. It was interesting that we didn't see anyone other than Logan Woodside out there for him at quarterback. So maybe they're really slow playing it. But on the Miami side, our boy Skylar Thompson did not have his best day out there. 10 of 16, 104 yards with a 6.5 yard average, which is okay, but he had 2 interceptions. Same with our other guy, Mike White, who was out there 9 of 14, 6.1 yard average. He also had an interception. It was a lot of turnovers for this Miami team. The kind of bright spot for them is that running back, Ashane, who's a speedster running back. He had 10 rushes for 25 yards, which is nothing crazy because he's less of a running guy and more of a receiving back. And that's where he did his work. 4 receptions, 41 yards. The longest of those was 19 yards. So he's actually able to work out there as a decent receiving back for that team. So
do you ever get the feel that Mike McDaniels would purposely just trot out a dog shit group or a game plan and put Mike White and Skylar in some really bad spots just to see what they got? And because he's a weird fucking cat and let's toss this. I'm going to draw up this dumbass play that's probably not going to work. Let's see if they can run it. He seems like that kind of guy. To an extent,
you can kind of test things out, and you're definitely going to run a scheme, not like game day out there. We see it from all these teams. You'll have guys, going for it on longer 4th downs all the time in the preseason because they want to see what their offense has. They don't really care what the score is. They don't care about the stat lines even. They want to see, are these guys showing traits, things like that. So that's why I don't put a whole bunch of, if the interceptions are just real bad interceptions, then that's obviously something that's going to show up on film and the team will be able to evaluate it appropriately. But if they're out there putting them in situations where the guy's throwing a good ball or showing good traits, those interceptions don't matter as much. I'm sure that McDaniels was putting them out there in non-advantageous situations just to get it on film and have something extra to evaluate. Would he go out there and run that wild of a scheme where they're basically set up to fail? I don't know. Maybe. But I mean, you'll just see weird stuff in the preseason. Like for my Vikings, Jordan Addison's first catch, sideline catch, looked fantastic. They called it back. They said that he was out of bounds. The replay showed that he was in bounds by a yard or so. Absolutely caught the ball. KOC didn't throw the challenge flag because he's like, okay, on film, we already know he made that catch. On game day, on real game day, we're going to challenge that, and it's going to be a nice catch for us. But this gives us an opportunity to
we can run something else. Now we got a 2nd and 10 opportunity to get a different situation. Different play call comes in now.
And we ended up scoring on that drive. We just, it took more plays, and we got to put more game film out there for ourselves to evaluate. So that sort of stuff is going to happen. You're not going to have as many challenges and things like that in the preseason.
All right.
Moving on here. Steelers, Buccaneers.
So I did catch a little bit of this. Just because I wanted to see how Baker was going to do, because reports have been that Baker has fucking struggled mightily in camp. Didn't seem to struggle in the game, but also didn't really push the ball down the field either, which is something that Baker was kind of known to do, was push the ball down the field. A little bit of a gunslinger. Didn't really do that in this game. I wonder if he is concerned with all the rumblings that he looks so bad in camp that he might not become the starter. Because if he loses this fucking job to Kyle Trask, you got to think that Baker's career is just about done then, right?
I mean, I thought that last year until he went to the Rams. Obviously, scheme helps a lot with these guys. Baker had an okay day. I mean, 8 of 9, 62 yards, 7-yard average, and a touchdown. Didn't look terrible. I mean, but you're going up against Pittsburgh's backups. At least a lot of the guys playing were backups on the defensive side for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh did play some starters like Kenny Pickett, who was 6 of 7, 70 yards and a touchdown. So also kind of looked okay. But again, it's really tough to evaluate because there were some starters, potential starters, going against backup defenders. So there's not a ton for me to really garnish from this, other than it seemed like preseason football with preseason play versus backups, except for some of those starters were showing to be at least average against those backups. So it's really tough to parlay that into what are they going to be like on actual game day.
Yeah, when you get into the later parts of the games, you got to have a dude that just literally hops off the film at you like, oh my God, this guy's making a play every single time when he's going up against the threes and the fours. Because if he's just dominating the threes and the fours, okay, maybe we give this guy a run against the twos. We see what he can do. Maybe he's a rotational piece. But when they're not jumping off tape, when they're going against threes and fours, it's really tough, and it makes it hard to watch. So that for me, what I really try to watch when I'm watching preseason, I'm almost entirely focused on the quarterback play. Where are they placing the ball? So if it's just, I want to see how this rookie defensive end works. Like you're not gonna get much from a rookie defensive end during the preseason. Now, quarterbacks, you can actually start to see a little bit. What's the footwork look like? Where's the ball placement? Are they confident with where they know what they're going with the ball? That's a lot of the things that I'm watching. Baker, it seems like he's still confident, but he's just not pushing the ball down the field. Those are the things that I notice a lot during the preseason.
Yeah. And it might be a little bit more of a dink and dunk offense there for Tampa. It'll be interesting to see what they move to now that they don't have Brady there anymore, because you can expect a schematic change just like you are going to see in Green Bay without Rodgers being there. Interesting note, I mean, Pittsburgh had 15 guys catch the ball, like 15 different players. So that's just showing you how many guys are out there that aren't going to be making this team.
Yeah.
Like they are just giving a lot of run to a lot of different players. All right, moving on. Commanders and Browns. Yeah, I'm assuming that you watched this one. So how do you think
I did?
Went?
So I was actually in the stadium for this. I was working the game. I feel very special. I have my own credentials now from the Cleveland Browns to get me in and out of the stadium. So I was like, oh, I feel very, very special. However, walking around was a pain in the ass, and I was so tired at the end of the game with the boot and the cast and all the injuries still working. About halfway through the game, I was like, if I don't sit right down right now, I'm going to pass out. But it did give me an opportunity to watch some of the game. Deshaun's legs looked great, but his arm wasn't bad. Just I don't know if it's the receivers not separating because we didn't have a ton of separation, or if he doesn't trust what he's seeing yet. But he was very quick to try to break pocket. Made a couple of good throws. I mean, the stat line said I think he only threw like 4 passes. I think was the stat line.
Three passes, 3 receptions, 12 yards.
Yeah. So I mean, there's not much to see there, but you could see on the times where he dropped back the pass and scrambled. Scramble drill looks great, but I don't know what he's
three rushes, 20 yards.
Yeah, I don't know what he's not seeing or what's not there in the pass game. It didn't look like we had good separation. He didn't try to force any balls, which is great. But the offense isn't quite wide open yet. And we're also going through a little bit of a transition. We still have the same head coach, still same offensive coordinator, but they are making adjustments to this offense to better try to suit it towards Deshaun's skill set. And that is not something that is necessarily in the Stefanski wheelhouse. He's a fucking 2 tight end, 3 tight ends sometimes sets where we're now trying to open it up a little bit more. We're not quite there yet in the schematics and the understanding, but Deshaun didn't make any egregious mistakes and has the ability. He's still very, very athletic to escape the pocket and make plays happen, get a first down when he has to. I would have loved to see him get the ball in the end zone. But I'm not going to blame him for that down there at the goal line with Deshaun in the game. That was Stefanski's fault. That was terrible play calling. But we're also running a very vanilla offense right now. So Deshaun looked fine. I didn't necessarily love the things that I saw passing wise from him, but there were not a ton of opportunities. Now, once the game finally got going a little later into the game, DTR is going to be on this team for a very, very long time. At least that's my hope, or that we will find a way to flip him. because that young man is dynamic. He will make things happen in big ways. I'm very grateful that we have him in case this Deshaun thing does not work out, or we can turn him into a pick because he looks like he can play the part. The stage is not too big for him.
Yeah,
that continues to be the theme.
DTR after the Hall of Fame game last week where he looked pretty damn good. Same thing this week. 9 of 10, 102 yards, a touchdown, also running the ball, 3 rushes for 11 yards. He's a mobile guy. He's a little bit smaller, but I mean, he's making it work. The guy looks good. Josh Dobbs, probably going to be your primary backup this year, but you definitely have something in DTR.
I don't know, man. I don't know if he is.
I wouldn't feel bad if you just ran with 2 quarterbacks being Deshaun and DTR and try to slip either Amond or Dobbs onto your practice squad, though I'm just off on Mond, despite him going 7-12, 79 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, well, and even with the stat line, which is still not great, he didn't look that great either.
Yeah.
He got the touchdown, which is awesome, but I mean, DTR is different. Like when you put your eyes on somebody, you can see, you're like, holy shit, that guy's got something. And DTR has it. Kellen Mond does not have that. I'm very excited about DTR. I don't know what his future is going to hold because he's stuck behind Deshaun for a very long time. But that is what I was excited about the most in this game is that DTR continues to show that the moment is not too big. Being I think it was a 5th round pick, does not matter. He can play. I would like to see him get a little bit more run against, the 2s, a little higher up earlier in the game, get him some reps to see if he can still do it. But when the guys that he's going against, he looks like he very clearly outmatches them.
Absolutely. Anything that you saw from the Commanders out there?
Sam Howell's pretty fucking good, man. Sam had good command of the huddle, played pretty well. They are still going to be a little slow and stagnant on offense. That's something that we saw from the Commanders last year. But I think Sam Howell will probably go in as their starter. He looked pretty good. And if not, they have Jacoby Brissett, who can come in and start games no problem.
Yeah, I think they're going to run with Howell and see what he has this year because he looked good, at the end of last year. And so far, he's looked at least serviceable. So I think they'll see what they got in him this year.
Yeah, he looked all right. Their defense still pretty goddamn good, though. I'll tell you that. That defensive front still pretty good for Washington, especially when they're healthy. Another guy, though, for my Browns that still, once again, stood out pretty well, Draymond Jones. He's gonna start on this line at some point. Not this year, I don't think. Next year, I think he's gonna have himself a spot on the starting offensive line. Because he performed pretty well against Chase. And that's a tough dude to match up against, especially when he's as fast as he is and Draymond is as large as he is. Being able to get down there and keep up with that speed at that size is tough.
All righty. Well, we can move on to our next game here. The Broncos and the Cardinals, both teams trotted out their starters and kept them out there for quite a bit.
I wish I'd have watched this game because they played their starters for a while, but there was no way I was going to watch. I could not fucking put myself through Broncos Cardinals.
Yeah, well, it was interesting because they both looked like they're in midseason form, which is going to be pretty bad. Like Russ Wilson, he looked better than he did last year. He still does not look good. I'll say that. And the scheme is probably going to help him out a little bit, but Russ, his arm still looks cooked. He was 7 of 13, 93 yards and a touchdown, but it didn't he was going against, albeit the Cardinals are playing their starters, but the Cardinals are very bad. Most of their starters aren't starters on most teams. I'd rather watch an actual Bronco versus an actual Cardinal. It wasn't a fun game to watch. They both looked anemic on offense. The defenses did not look special. There really were no highlights, especially for the Cardinals out there. I'll say that there was nothing that really stood out for me on that side of the.
I have higher hopes for the Broncos than I have the Cardinals.
Absolutely, but I mean, guys that you expect to do good. Jerry Jeudy had 2 catches for 40 yards. He looked all right. Cortland Sutton looked all right. Like, they've got the receiving talent there for the
Russ.
Broncos. But I mean, we are going to see an uptick in their offense. I'll say we will see an uptick in their offense this year because Russ looks a little better. But I truly think that is the Sean Payton factor. They have a better scheme, better suited for him. They don't have a terrible head coach in Nathaniel Hackett. Aaron Rodgers can suck my dick. I won't keep that name out of my mouth. It was a bad fucking year. Nothing that was said was wrong, other than the fact that as a professional, maybe Sean Payton shouldn't have said it, but he was absolutely right in what he said. It was terribly run there in Denver last year. They will be better addition by subtraction from getting rid of Hackett. They'll be better because they're bringing in a competent head coach. But I do not think that this team is going to be very competitive this year. I think that Russ is probably cooked, and that is why they're going to try to move on from him next year and bring in someone like a Kyler Murray, who was out there in a sports bra working out. Like, ridiculous. Ridiculous. But it was a pretty terrible game. Both teams looked like I said, mid-season form.
Yeah.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, pretty bad.
Saturday we had the Colts and the Bills play though. This one was a little bit more interesting because we did get to see at least my guy, Anthony Richardson, out there playing a little bit.
This is a game that I definitely caught because I wanted to see what Anthony Richardson was going to show up and do.
All right. So what were your takeaways from Anthony Richardson's performance?
Listen, Anthony Richardson is incredibly dynamic as an athlete, but there are going to be growing pains. And I think everybody who watched that game kind of saw that. There are times where he's going to make the wrong decision. He's going to be late sometimes, and he's going to force a ball. That's how you end up with the pick. But I think this guy is going to be special. And I believe this offense is going to be a little bit better suited towards the quarterback than they were previously. Like, if you look at the stat line for all the quarterbacks, Gardner went 6 of 6 for 72 yards. Sam Ehlinger goes 8 of 9 for 72 yards. So the efficiency is there. And then Anthony Richardson 7 for 12. So the efficiency is not quite as high there, but like, he's going to be more dynamic. I don't know what the fuck the Colts are going to do about their running back situation or what's going to happen at all with that. They still need receivers. But I'm excited for Anthony Richardson. I think you can see just the high level of dynamic quarterback that he can be, but you're going to have to live with the bumps and bruises.
Yeah. For
at
me,
least for this year,
Anthony Richardson, it's what I was expecting to see from him. Super, super raw quarterback that if was put in a better situation, he's sitting this year. But in a year's time under NFL tutelage, he's got so much potential that I think that he could be pretty awesome. And it's the receiving. They don't have the receivers there in Indianapolis to really help him out. Like, Alec Pierce dropped like a 35-yard touchdown pass from Richardson that he dropped it right in the pocket.
Yeah.
And that was Alec Pierce is a very boomer bust type of wide receiver. He just doesn't have great hands. So he drops. We saw last year, he dropped some touchdowns and some really great catches that he could have made. He didn't come through last year with Alec Pierce. And Pittman is good. We know Pittman's good. We saw Amari Rodgers out there look okay. I mean, he's got some run as a third or fourth option in the NFL. And then Josh Downs, their rookie, he was 2 catches, 29 yards on 2 targets, which looked solid, but he's not going out there to be a number 1 guy. He's realistically a slot or a number 2 at best. You just don't have the receiving options there. This team is predicated on being a good running team, having a good, solid run game. And until they figure out the running back situation there, you don't know if it's really going to happen. I'm happy my guy Evan Hull from Maple Grove Crimson Pride out there. He had 7 rushes for 15 yards. Not the greatest running day, but he's not meant to be a running style running back. He's much more of a receiver. So he had 2 receptions for 18 yards, which was nice to see there. I am not discouraged by the Anthony Richardson performance.
I'm not either, even with the pick. So it's the same thing that kind of happened with CJ Stroud, is that if you're not 100% confident in what you're seeing just yet because the game is so much faster. You're going to be late and you're going to make a mistake. Once they make these mistakes enough, like they're going to pick up and they're going to get there. Like, I think that is within their wheelhouse.
It's what, again, we saw all the framework of what can make Anthony Richardson great. We just have to remember he played on a terrible Florida team.
Yeah.
And has only like 1 year of starting experience, and now he's jumping to the big time level in the NFL. He's got it. Same thing that we talked about with Stroud. He needs to get used to it. You know, he's got to get used to the NFL offense, the game speed, things like that. Yeah. And again, I did not like the Colts as a situation for him to go there because he was going to be thrust into the starting role pretty damn quick. A year of sitting in tutelage would have been fantastic for Richardson.
I think that's still a possibility. I think that Gardner could start. They could keep Sam around and maybe he'll be the 3. I don't think that that's what the Colts want, though. I think they want to go with the Peyton model. They want to toss his ass out there, see what happens, and then we'll go from there. I don't know about that, man. I'm not ready to say that yet.
Richardson has bust potential. I'll say it. But his upside is extremely intriguing and exciting to me. And if he busts there with the Colts, I think it's because the Colts, not necessarily because of Richardson.
Well, if Jim Irsay would get his fucking head out of his ass and stop playing fucking
rescuing whales instead of playing his quarterback
with
or paying his running back
fucking game where he's pissing in his running back's cornflakes for no fucking reason. He's like, I will pay every other fucking running back in the NFL but you at this point.
Yeah. That was the one story I saw was that Jim Irsay did pay like $21 million to help relocate a whale.
Yes.
In Florida or something like that. And he'd rather do that than pay his running back who, the team kind of needs.
Him. Because
whatever. I guess that's probably a tax write-off for him or something donation-wise, right?
I don't know. Maybe I don't follow Jim Irsay's finances, but listen, I think Anthony Richardson there's gonna be bumps and bruises. I don't like this narrative that, oh my God, he has to be so good in his rookie year. Listen, if they play, when you're a rookie and you play, you're gonna have bumps and bruises. Whether it's because your head coach fucking sucks ass, like what happened down in Jacksonville with Urban Meyer and that entire situation, or you just got to learn the speed of the game. There's going to be bumps and bruises. But we can see guys who are supremely athletic find ways to make things work in the league. And it's kind of what's going on with the Bears. Yep. And people are very high on the Bears because we can transition to that game.
That's why I've been saying the floor for Richardson should be Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And people are excited about Justin Fields, and I don't know why. I mean, yeah, he's a running quarterback, and now that offensive system kind of suits him, but he's never going to be a great quarterback, in my personal opinion. But yeah, so that next game we have the Bears and the Titans.
Yeah, he won't ever elevate to that Jalen Hurts level, a guy who is dynamic with his legs, but can also put a ball on you. I don't know if he'll ever get to that point, but he can be efficient at what he's doing, which is exactly what he did in this game. Threw a bad ball on a screen to a playmaker who made a play. Now, if he has enough playmakers, they'll be fine. DJ Moore made a great play, split a block, and then takes it for 60 yards to the house. But am I excited about the Bears? And am I anywhere near this run of like Justin Fields as the possible MVP? Apparently, this was like one of the highest betted options in Vegas for futures on the MVP is Justin Fields. I don't fucking see that at all. But good on the people for making a bet. If it hits, you're going to make a shitload of money. I bet you Vegas switched the odds up after that. But he's going to be exactly what we expect him to be. He's going to be a mobile quarterback.
So Justin Fields, 3 for 3, 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. But when we break that down, First pass, 3 yards in the air, gained 11 yards. The second pass, 2 yards in the air, gained 62 yards and a touchdown. And third pass, gained 2 yards in the air, 56 yards total and a touchdown. So
is he just efficient at finding his playmakers, or is he?
I mean,
do they have to scheme it up to where the air yards aren't there so he can
You're
get the ball out of his hands fast?
you're also playing against a Titans team who I don't know if they played most of their starters or not, but even if they did, they are a team in rebuild mode, especially on defense. You threw fucking 7 yards in the air and got on the stat line 129 yards passing. That's not very much. It's going up, like, it'll be a difficult thing to scheme for some NFL teams for sure, because this is going to be a very short dink and dunk offense with a lot of good playmakers on it. But explosive, I don't know if it will be, and they're going to find ways to shut this down. NFL defenses will find ways to shut this down. So
At some point, they will, for
it.
sure.
I'm buying into it very much. All right, what's next here? Jets and Panthers. Jets absolutely curb stomped the Panthers.
Yeah, it wasn't close. And Bryce, I don't think looked bad either in this game. However, I am worried about Bryce and his health because he was hit on 50% of his dropbacks, if not more. That offensive line is still terrible. I remember talking about it a couple years, I think it was 2 years ago now. Ike Ekwonu, right?
Mm-hmm.
Really good offensive lineman. Should not be a left tackle. He was that combo guard tackle, had position, versatility. They're like, this guy's going to start at left tackle for us. And then week 1 last year goes up against Myles Garrett, gives up 2 sacks very, very quickly. Ike Ekwonu is not a left tackle. He needs to be slid inside where he can be a fucking all-pro. The offensive line is going to be a problem for the Panthers, and it is going to be a problem for Bryce Young. He is not going to be able to be efficient because he does not have elite physical traits. He's fast, sure, but all of the other things that you want, the height, the build, the stature to be able to withstand all that, it's not there, and that makes me nervous for him.
Yeah,
not that he did a bad job.
I like the bones of this Carolina team. I like some of the bones, like the coaching staff that they brought in, I think is outstanding. Bryce Young, I think, has the potential to be an outstanding quarterback, but they're missing so much in other spots on the team that it's going to be a really tough slugfest. That this is still like a 4, maybe 5 win team for me, just because I don't know that they have the rest of the pieces elsewhere in order to make it really work.
Yeah, I would hate for Bryce in his career to have such a downturn. People be like, oh, no, he's a bust immediately because they can't block for him. Listen, I'm not a big Bryce Young guy. He was my 3rd, 4th quarterback throughout the draft process. Not that he can't be good. He just doesn't have the physical traits that you want. If they don't build things around him and give this guy some weapons and some fucking protection, he has absolutely no shot.
Absolutely.
He doesn't have the talent on his own, I think, to elevate everybody else.
Now, on the other side of the field, running back Israel Abanikanda still looked pretty good. Decent running, 12 carries, 56 yards, and maybe even better, 3 receptions for 31 yards. So he's still looking like a stud. But how do you feel like your guy Zach Wilson did out there?
Listen, Zach played better. Zach is starting to process a little bit better. He has a very strong arm. He has arm talent. The arm talent was never there. It's, can he process the game at the right speed and play within the framework of what is called? We know he can ad-lib. That was the only thing that he did in college. It's, can he play the majority of the game within script? Here he looks better than he did before, but I still think that there's a lot of room to grow, and we'll see what happens. I'm going to leave it there. I don't know that he is ever going to turn into a starter, but playing against the Carolina Panthers in a preseason game, he looked fine.
Yeah. All right. So our next one, Jacksonville Jaguars and the Dallas Cowboys. This was a whatever match. Trevor Lawrence started the game. I didn't think that he looked that good. Even though
I didn't even watch this one. So I got nothing for you on this one.
So he threw a pretty bad interception early on. Was 5 of 6 for 36 yards. He also threw a touchdown. The highlight was from Nathan Rourke, their third string quarterback. He should have been tackled like 4 times and then ended up throwing like a the touchdown. It's pretty nice for a guy that probably still isn't making the team. Tank Bigsby had himself a good day, running 9 rushes, 52 yards. But that is padded a little bit because one of his rushes was 34 yards. Etienne looked okay, averaged 4.4 yards on 5 rushes. But over on the Dallas side, Will Greer over there now, 22 passes, 31 of 22 of 31 for 2 touchdowns and an interception. It's a new look offense over there for Dallas. So
that is so many fucking passes in a preseason game.
Yeah. It was a full game's worth of passes for Will Greer, and he didn't even play the entire time. They're definitely going for much more of a pass-heavy offense out there, a little bit, trying to be a little bit more electric in Dallas. Deuce Vaughn, the midget running back out there, who, he's just fucking tiny compared to all these guys. 8 rushes for 50 yards.
Oh, yeah.
And a touchdown, so he looked pretty decent there as well. As
I hope Deuce sticks around.
Yeah, I'm sure he's probably in line to be the backup right now, but a change of pace type guy.
Yeah. From their other change of pace type guy and Tony Pollard?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. Like I said, they're moving much less focus on the run and way more focus on the pass there in Dallas.
They should focus on paying and their fucking all-pro guard.
Yeah. Well.
But, whatever. This is only the Lineman Lounge. Just trying to stand up for the big guys.
Absolutely. Next, we have the Eagles and the Ravens. You watch any of this game?
I did not watch any of this game either.
So I have not either. Looking real quick here at the stat line.
That one.
Yeah. The Ravens, they continue their win streak in the preseason. So there's that.
Good job, Ravens. Fucking preseason champs. I mean, I guess I can look at the stat line here. I can see that Tyler Huntley still plays for Baltimore and gave an absolute Pro Bowl experience. 8 for 11, 88 yards and a touchdown. Obviously deserved to be a Pro Bowler last year. And then is now going to back up the guy who was should have been a Pro Bowler if he were healthy. Could win an MVP anytime he wants. Doesn't necessarily have the best accuracy to complete a 10-yard pass, though.
Yep. Next game up.
Taking shots at Lamar.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Next game up, we had LA versus LA, Chargers versus the Rams. So Chargers, Easton Stick, their backup quarterback, he looked like he had a pretty decent day. They are looking a lot more vertical in their passing game. They brought in Kellen Moore as their new offensive coordinator there. He looked to be able to throw the ball around with relative ease. 14 21, 109 yards and a touchdown. Max Dugan also was out there for a couple series, and he didn't look like anything too special. Got sacked a whole bunch. So he was only 2 for 3, but he also had 3 sacks for 23 yards. So not that great. Over on the other side,
I'm pretty sure he lost more yards than he gained.
Yes. Well, if we count in rushing.
Okay, no. So 39 minus 23. Let's do the quick math there. 16 yards. Good job.
Yep. On the other side, we had Stetson Bennett out there, the 28-year-old starting quarterback or whatever he is because of his 7 years in college. He was 17 of 29, 191 yards and a touchdown as well. So
also 3 sacks.
Yep. 3 sacks, 36 yards. He definitely could or probably is in line there to be the primary backup, I think, right now behind Stafford.
I think he will probably stick.
Yeah. Puka Nacua for the Rams, wide receiver. He's a guy I liked during the pre-draft process as a late round guy. He was 3 receptions, 32 yards, and touchdowns. So he's actually looking like he could be a little bit something. And then Tyler Johnson, former wide receiver from Tampa Bay, they didn't retain him. 5 receptions, 70 yards. So he actually looked pretty decent there as well. But again, I don't expect a whole lot out of the Rams this season. I think that they are still going to be this post Super Bowl slump and that fuck you picks slump. The Chargers, we'll see. I just hate their head coach. We'll see if they can actually put something together. Maybe bringing in Kellen Moore will help out that offense a little bit, but I don't know.
I'm trying to figure out what the fuck they're going to do with Quentin Johnston, because you get a big body receiver. You expect some things to happen, right? But you go back and you see the game, you see the stat line as well. Okay, so he's got 6 targets. He's got 3 catches. Okay, I mean, 50%. That's not great, but you like to see the target share up there because he should be, in a preseason game, the guy getting the lion's share of the targets. But those 3 catches, he goes for 10 fucking yards and a touchdown. Touchdown's great. But one of his catches goes for 8 yards. So that means his other 2 catches went for 2 fucking yards. This is a guy that we were not high on in the draft process. And I don't know where he's going to fit in this receiver room. You think he goes and he's there easily. You write him in as your number 3 behind, Mike Williams and how the fuck did I just forget his name? Keenan Allen. So boom, Quentin Johnston just slides right fucking in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when you are getting this kind of look, like what, you can't be encouraged by that.
Yeah, he was getting thrown short screen passes yesterday from the couple plays I saw. He was being used in more of that short intermediate screen game, which is something that he was kind of known for, was being able to make something after the catch. So that's why, as a third receiver, they might try to be using him on a little bit more gadgety type stuff, despite his size. But that's the thing that this team's going to have kind of going for it, is that it's got now 3 guys who are possession receivers that are big body guys. It could definitely provide some mismatches if your team has much smaller cornerbacks, guys with a little bit more muscle to them too. So we'll see. It was, he was out there because he's a rookie. The starters weren't playing. And he is going to be, your third wide receiver until inevitably they have injuries along that wide receiver group, because Chargers always seem to have that problem. All righty. And that kind of wraps it up for the Saturday games. Like I said, we still have the Chiefs and Saints playing right now. I'll refresh here. It is 17-7. So the Chiefs are starting their comeback in our Super Bowl spectacular. Yeah, that's about all. I can't really tell you much of what's going on with the game because I'm sitting here doing the show.
Yep. I have no idea. I'm going to try to catch that other game because I don't have anything to do until about 7 o'clock tonight. But yeah, right now I got really nothing else. You did ask me earlier about anybody else that I did like during the Browns game. And I mean, I focused a lot on my Browns. Ronnie Hickman was great. The interception, fantastic. I think he could be, he's going to stick on this team. He's going to be a factor somewhere on the back end of the defense. So.
All righty. Well, that about wraps it up then, huh?
Yeah. I mean, I got nothing else, brother. I got some work to do before I talk to you later, get some things squared away. But great show. I appreciate you. Everybody who tunes into our show every week, we cannot thank you guys enough. Anytime you spend time with us, we greatly appreciate it. If you want to watch the show, go to the YouTube, hit the bell, subscribe, like the show. You'll get notifications every time that we go live. If you want to interact with us, you can go to the Facebook. The group is always popping. I am very active on Twitter as of recently because I got nothing else to do. We have all the social medias. So that's Threads, Instagram, TikTok, all that shit. If you want to listen to our beautiful voices, go anywhere your podcast can be found, and we are there. But with that, brother, I have nothing else for today. Do you have any parting words for the people before we get the fuck out of here?
No, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for the support. It'll be an interesting next couple weeks here because, like I said, I'm going to be traveling a little bit. I'll be out there in Mike's neck of the woods. We might get to meet up for a little while, but It'll be a little bit more difficult for me because I'm going to be gone next weekend and probably won't really be available to do a show. Maybe we'll have to push that show a little bit into the week or something like that. But don't worry. We're still going to be on the socials. We're still going to be putting out all the information that you guys need. And we might start working up something towards a little bit more of a draft thing if you're doing some fantasy football, because we know that we are. If you are drafting right now, talk to your league manager and be like, what the hell are we doing? We still have a couple weeks till the season starts and guys are going to get injured. So hopefully your league manager is doing the right thing and not starting.
Yep. Should not be drafting yet.
All right. Which gives us a little bit more time to get some of that information to you. But anyways, that's it for me, man.
All right, man. Well, guys, thank you very much. This is the Lineman Lounge. We will be back next week at some point. Stay tuned on the socials for when that is going to be. But thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. We're getting the fuck out of here. See you.